Hi, I'm Dallas Cowan, and welcome to the Calm Waves podcast. I am with Keith Holmes. He is a wonderful human being that just really enjoys helping people in so many ways. Keith, thank you for joining me here today. Tell me where you are in the world right now.
So I am down here in Scottsdale, Arizona.
Okay, and you have a unique place in Scottsdale, Arizona, because Scottsdale, Arizona, when people think of Scottsdale, Arizona, they think of, golf and high-rise buildings and lots of fancy cars. But you're at a place that's kind of unique. I guess maybe not for the Cave Creek area, but how many horses do you have on your property right now?
So where I'm at right now, we've got about 55 between horses, mules, and a couple donkeys, and there's some cattle here too. So
That
there's quite a bit going on around here.
That is amazing. I know I've been out there a few times, and it's just so funny to, get off the Scottsdale Road and out of the city just a couple miles, and all of a sudden it's like horses and cowboys and all of that, out there. So it's pretty amazing. And we'll get into that a little bit more because I got some questions about, here on the podcast, we like to talk about the brain and how to make it bigger, faster, stronger. And one thing that you do is help horses' brains bigger, faster, stronger, which I think is very, very fascinating. And we'll get into that a little bit later. But Keith, I would just love to hear just kind of like your origin story, how you got into what you are doing today, and how you help people, and just how you got into it.
Yeah. So I've kind of been saying forever that I want to do something in healthcare. I wanted to do something to help kind of more people. So I left my hometown and I went to school in kind of the middle of the state up in Wyoming. And I had decided that I wanted to be a nurse. And so I pursued that, and I worked in a few different locations around Casper. I worked in a nursing home and then 2 separate hospitals. I wasn't seeing necessarily what I was expecting to see. I felt like there was more that I could be doing to help people than kind of the restrictions that are around that. So I ended up moving back to Jackson, Wyoming, and the options there were pretty slim. Kind of one of the only spots that I was able to work into would be another long-term care center. I told myself I wasn't going to do that anymore. So I kind of decided that I would walk away from it altogether, and then kind of just fate or coincidence or kind of a weird timing, I met up with somebody that showed me that there is a whole nother side to healthcare that I didn't really know even existed. And she kind of walked me through a lot of it and showed me that there's way more than just the one approach that I was, trained and taught for. Since have decided to kind of take everything that I have in my program on the road. So the real estate market up in my hometown is a little bit insane. And so it was actually the same price for me to purchase an RV and work remote than it was to pay 1 month worth of rent to have a storefront up in Jackson. So that decision was easy, and I ended up buying an RV, and now I just kind of travel everywhere. And I primarily do house calls where I meet people kind of wherever and just work remotely that way. In the program that I have right now, I'm offering bioenergetic testing, and the other ones that I offer are just kind of different therapies that are involved. So I have a Rife machine, I do PEMF therapy, and then last fall I added the direct neurofeedback as well. So
Yeah, I remember when we met, you were, when we were talking about direct neurofeedback, you were one of the few people that when we first met, you said, I know what that is and I've done it before. And it's always interesting because when we usually meet people, it's trying to explain the process and the science behind it and how all these things, and you're like, yep, done it. Yep, that's super cool. I like it. So tell me about that experience that you had with the direct neurofeedback, or your first kind of experience with it.
yeah. So it wasn't the experience I had with it was primarily training her, the girl that I was kind of working with, so that way she could get more experience with the machine. They did a couple weeks of training with her hands-on, and so she had kind of rounded up a few different kind of guinea pig volunteers to come in that she could just practice, start to finish the whole thing on. She did give me some paperwork to go home and just kind of track how I'm feeling over the next few days and things like that. But it was kind of what we did together was way more for her to gain the experience and understand how to work the program and everything else with it. And it was way less about me actually receiving any form of treatment. So my expectation was kind of non-existent, but I didn't really know everything that I should be expecting. But from what I got from it with only doing a few of those sessions with her, I knew that there was a huge piece of it that I could benefit from just from the way that I was feeling. And so I've kind of been looking for it since then, and finally, was got in touch with you guys and actually was able to make something work.
What was it about that when you first did it, the feeling that you got? Like, what was the thing that you were like, oh, this is different?
So kind of one of the first things during that stage in my life, I was trying to figure out different ways that I could get off of my anxiety medication. And every time I
Mm.
tried kind of different things, there wasn't a whole heck of a lot that was actually working. And one of the biggest things for me is like I get very scatterbrained where I'll make all these mental lists and then it almost just becomes overwhelming. That was something that I noticed right off the bat with it. The other one that I noticed was it really helps me with like my waking up and my sleep cycle, where when I wake up in the mornings, I'm not groggy or I'm not tired. I'm not kind of in that weird fog phase. When my alarm goes off and my eyes open up, I'm like wide awake and well rested. So that was
Hmm.
kind of the biggest things that I've noticed with it. At that stage, that was about everything that I noticed when I was working with her. The questionnaires that she was sending me home with were related to a whole mess of things that at that stage of my life I wasn't really thinking any of those were changing, and I didn't have as much information.
That's very interesting. Yeah, I think it was always interesting to see people's reaction to it. I mean, that's always the funniest thing is how, what do you experience? Clarity of thought, better sleep, all of those types of things. So I always think that's a very interesting question to always ask. So go back into a little bit more into because I think this is fascinating because you have a whole program that you do with people. Tell about the Quest side of things. I know we were talking about the other day over coffee, and you talked about Quest and how you can take a hair follicle or your spit and go, I know exactly what your body reacts to or deficient in. So talk about a little bit about that because I think that's super fascinating.
So that's the bioenergetic testing. I usually like to do those live when I'm working with a client one-on-one. That way they can see the process happening and they're present, so I'm able to kind of work with them a lot more. I am able to get almost the exact same information through DNA samples. And so if it's not possible for me to meet with somebody, then I will send them a little sample kit in the mail and have them pull a follicle and then do an oral swab and send it back. And from there, I can just get kind of a general idea of how the body's working and anywhere that's working too hard and anywhere that's not working hard enough. And then from there, I can actually isolate different systems and I can see what is it that's primarily impacting why that system isn't functioning 100%. And then I can also run different nutritional panels, which is what I run basically with every single person that I work with. And I look at hormone levels, I look at neurotransmitter levels, and then I look at different nutritional markers. So I can see if somebody is deficient in an essential mineral or a vitamin, or if it's more circulatory problems and utilization issues, or if it's that they're getting way too much of something. And that's usually what it is. Where different supplements are marketed for different things. And so a lot of the times when I work with somebody for the first time, I have them bring everything. And that way I can look at everything they're on. And it's usually magnesium that's the culprit, where it's included in their multivitamin, and then it's included in at least one or two other supplements they're taking. And when you break that down, then they're getting 4 times the maximum dose that they're taking every single day. So I'm able to kind of look at the body as a whole and figure out what do we need to get out and what do we need to get more in to help bring them back to a center where things can proceed as normal.
2 questions for you, kind of back-to-back questions. So what kind of clients come to you? And then why is it that you wanted to add the direct neurofeedback to your suite of products?
So I kind of when I'm working with new people, I kind of have a little joke with myself where I call it planting the seed. And one of my biggest goals is trying to show people that there's more than one way to get the results that they're wanting. So about just over half the clients that I'm working with have taken the Western medicine approach to things and are not getting the results they want, or they're not getting answers that they want, where they've gone and seen, 3 or 4 different people and everyone says, oh, it may be this or it might be that, but there's no like, this is what's going on. So they're kind of just gathering more information, or they don't like the protocol that their doctor has recommended and they want to see something else. So where I say I kind of plant the seed is I just kind of briefly kind of nudge people and let them know that, there's about, 10,000 different ways that you can treat something or manage something and provide support and balance for it that doesn't involve either doing prescription, whether it's a medication or an injection, or, doing all these different procedures that are out there now for everything, that there's other ways that you can achieve that. And usually when I say kind of a little thing to them about it, it's either somebody will respond with, well, like, what else is out there? Or they'll respond with, I don't want to go that direction. And so that's kind of where I say I plant the seed, where I kind of give them a little bit of information and then I base it off of how engaged they are with that before I kind of start feeding them more and more information, because it is a little bit overwhelming, especially with a lot of the language that's involved with the style of healthcare that I'm in. It's a little bit intimidating, and it's all language that most people aren't familiar with. So I try to make it easy for everyone to understand.
What's an example of language that's scary?
So a big one that I use all the time is energetic disturbances or imprint, or a utilization is always difficult for people to understand what I mean when I say it's a utilization error, meaning that, for instance, if it was, like vitamin B6, you might be getting enough of it in your diet, your body just doesn't know what to do with it. So that would be considered a utilization, where we'll just kind of start getting your body back to where it should be and training it to utilize it a little bit better. Some of the other that I use is kind of causal imbalances, meaning that it's contributing to the root of the problems, where I don't focus more than 5% of my energy on what is the symptom. I'm always trying to look at what is causing the symptom to support the root instead of the symptoms, and muting things that way. And then another one that I use more than anything is resonance. And that one always seems to stir people's minds up a little bit, is another one of the words that I lot.
What does that mean?
So resonance is it's one of those that it's hard to sum it up short and sweet. But essentially it's just how that impacts your body, whether it's something the body is actually going to be able to break down and utilize, or is it something that your body is going to struggle with. Because not everything is created equal. So when you walk into, the supermarket or your health and wellness store, and if you looked at like vitamin D options, there's probably 15 or 16 different brands and all different doses and all different everythings with it. So I can actually look at those and I can tell you exactly which one is actually going to support in your body or resonate with your body, and the ones that are dysresonant that your body is just going to eliminate more than half.
Wow,
I can describe that.
that's fascinating. So why is it that you added now? Because that's its own kind of category in of itself, to help somebody as they're breaking down their, the minerals in their body and the vitamins in their body, and that's a whole journey for somebody to take. Why is it that you wanted to add kind of the brain side of things?
Biggest reason why I wanted to was because everything I have in my program is something that I have done at one point in my life, and I've seen the results with it myself. I also know there is a surplus of people that have tried them and it's worked for them as well. The neurofeedback was kind of the one thing I felt like I was missing, because in the services that I offer right now, it's whole body support, and then I have it specific to certain organs and systems as well. But the one thing that was kind of missing was the brain. The other piece of it as well is I have kind of spent the last couple of years of my life looking into different deficiencies that are resulting to different mental health statuses. And I was noticing that I was getting results with it, but very, very, very slow. And it was almost kind of counter interacting with other treatments that people were working on. So the neurofeedback was something that could come in and support the brain, also the mental health piece of it, where it can do a lot of the work up front while we can get these other things balanced out in the background.
That's great. I mean, that's super fascinating of how you've kind of combined both of those. I want to go into the story of the horse. I want to go into the story of the direct neurofeedback with the horse. I know you're around a lot of horses. How did that happen? Where did you come up with that to go, hey, I've got an anxious horse here. I wonder if the direct neurofeedback is going to help them.
So I have spent my entire life around horses, and it's definitely a completely different world than other sports are, other events that people can do are. But one thing I have noticed is that with the horse world, that it's horses are now being treated for and diagnosed with different things that has never, we don't have any historical records of a horse ever going through any of these things. So a lot of that is feed changes or different supplements that are on the market. And because of that, and probably 5,000 other influences in there as well, people are treating their horses with antipsychotic medication that you would prescribe a person. Where if you have a horse that's, you're putting him in a high stress, high performance environment, and it's usually roping horses or barrel horses in the rodeo world, where they'll kind of get overly anxious and kind of fidgety, where they're not performing as well. The default for most of the contestants is to order a medication called chloropromazine, and that just kind of works as a little bit of a sedative for them, and it takes the edge off so the horse can go perform. But now we're seeing side effects from that as well. So I know what the neurofeedback can do, and I believe everything that it can do because I've seen it and experienced it firsthand. So I went on a little bit of a search trying to find somebody that has done this with horses, and I wasn't getting the amount of information that I was wanting to get. So I just went and grabbed my horse out of the pen, and I was like, I'm just going to try to wire him up and see what happens. And I kind of laughed because it was the first time I'd ever gotten a complete perfect connection with no interference, was when I wired my horse up, and that makes no sense to me. So I did a session with him, and I almost appreciate working with horses more than people, because it's very obvious when they're feeling it, versus some of the people that I'm working with kind of are thinking about it too hard when I'm asking if they're feeling things that are different. And they're like, well, maybe I am feeling relaxed, but am I feeling relaxed because I finally sat down after running around for 5 straight hours, or kind of what? When I'm working with my horse, there's no question that he's feeling something, because his breathing will completely change. His eyes will soften up, all of his muscles will loosen and relax. And then as soon as I unwire them and I kind of clean everything off, they will immediately eliminate their bladder and go drink water for about 5 solid minutes. And that's something else that I've noticed with almost every single horse that I've worked with will do that. So I was then kind of did a few sessions with him. He's very anxious at the trailer, and he kind of paws and paces around all the time and is very vocal. That instantly went away, where he became comfortable being by himself and not impatient anymore. And then when I was trying to ride him and compete on him, he things that he's struggled with seemed like they finally clicked, where his attention isn't focused on everywhere else, and it's not out of control a little bit. It was more of like an in-controlled ride. And so then I decided I wanted to start working with other people's horses. And at the sporting facility that I'm at right now, this is kind of the perfect opportunity for me too, because they're all, right here next to me. So I've started working with other horses that are here, and that's when I, decided to start filming everything. And so I've filmed sessions, and then after I've watching all those videos, I was thinking, okay, well, I don't have anything to show what this horse was like before. All I have is what they're like during and what they're like after. So then I kind of working with about 3 different people at the start, where I just wanted to film them compete and film them riding their horse and everything for a couple weeks, film all the sessions, and then film them compete when we're done. And what I'm noticing is it is doing exactly what I wanted it to do, where those horses that are high anxious and they're very tense and sweating and not really wanting to come in and out of the arena and kind of being fussy are just very calm, walk right into the arena, and then we'll go and compete. So that's what I'm seeing that way with it. Horses that used to not want to load in the trailer for whatever reason will just hop right in. They're no longer, we call it herd sour, where they don't want to leave the rest of the horses. They'll kind of throw a little bit of a fit like a toddler would. They just go right along with it now and are completely fine. So that also solidified for me kind of this never-ending argument with anything that I do is it placebo? And so I've tried to incorporate everything with animals, because that completely discredits the placebo, because my horse has no idea that when I'm gluing all these wires up to his head, that's what we're trying to accomplish. So that was one of the other things that I was really looking for. Is everyone that I was talking to, about 50% of them would always bring up the word placebo, and that word has always bothered me. So I figured if I could prove it with horses, then that would just discredit that argument.
Absolutely. I was actually going to bring that up, placebo, because we get that all the time too, is when we're talking to people about this, is like, oh, well, how do you know this is working? How do you know what's going on? And, you sent me the videos of it, and we were able to put together a video of, before and after. And you go, horses don't do placebo. Like, as you said, like it's nothing. They have no concept of it. So you just show them the video and they're like, well, that's cool. What has been other people's reactions? I mean, this is something that's not normal in a horse environment, So what is other people's reaction as you wire up somebody with a computer?
It's usually, especially around here, it usually attracts an audience because it's something that you never see anybody doing. But throughout that, then there's more eyes that are watching. So then, everyone sees, oh, you were working with that Palomino horse the other day, and now she's going to go run a barrel and a pull pattern on him. I want to see what he does. And it's every single time she's competed on him since I've started working with him, people are noticing that his personality a little bit is shifting, where he's not such a wired, anxious horse anymore, where he's just kind of goes with the flow. And the biggest thing that I look at is his tail swishing around the entire time, and is his muscles all tensed up, and he's prancing high. And if we were able to change the color of that horse's hair, I bet you nobody would even recognize it was the same horse. Every aspect of him is completely different at this point.
Wow, that's incredible. I know you were talking to me going back to changing, being anxious and everything like that. We were talking a little bit about some of your clients that you're working with the direct neurofeedback. And tell me a little bit about that experience that you've had, adding this to your kind of repertoire of things. But what are you seeing your clients experience? Not only the clients, but also their families.
Mhm. So there's a few different that are coming to mind just in the past few weeks here. There was one kind of towards the end of last year, where I had sat down with somebody and we had made a goal that this particular client wanted anxiety all the way down to a 0 before an event, and we had just right around 2 months before that event. And so we worked 3 days a week together that entire time, and we got the anxiety completely down to 0. Through that process, they were also working with their psychiatrist on decreasing the dose of the anxiety medication, because they were feeling almost like they were being over medicated. And that took me a few weeks to be able to fully make that connection of why all of a sudden it seemed like things were getting worse, where, they're, instead of them trending up, they're now trending down, where they're exhausted all the time and they're just kind of muted again. And so started decreasing the anxiety medication in small doses, and things got better. And then coming completely down to zero on the anxiety medication after we stopped the neurofeedback for about just over a month, the anxiety came back. And so that was where I brought the rest of my program in of, I know that we can get the anxiety to zero, but how can we keep the anxiety at zero? So we went back with the neurofeedback to get everything down. Then this person finally had the anxiety locked away at bay just enough that they could apply all of the coping mechanisms and the tools that they had learned in therapy. And it was easy to apply because they're not having to put the fire out before they can apply them. Then we looked at different nutritional deficiencies, vitamin and mineral deficiencies, and kind of supported the levels that were a little bit lower. And things are going good so far with it. And we're probably at just over a month now of kind of no medication. We're supporting a few of these vitamin and mineral levels, and then the neurofeedback we're doing about every 2 to 3 weeks now.
And how many sessions do you think that client, by the way, for the person who's listening, human client, this is not we're transitioning from horses to humans. If someone didn't see that connection, but how many sessions would you say were done in order for her to go, oh, I feel it's gone down now?
Are we talking sessions or stimulations?
Ooh, sessions. So so the first session, or how many stimulations? Because someone listening, explain both of those terms with the direct neurofeedback.
So looking at like the different sessions, it probably took almost 3. It was 2 or 3 before they really felt kind of a shift. And then from there, that shift was short-lived, where when this person finally called me and said, I am feeling a little bit different, it had lasted right around a day, maybe a day and a half. But then as we continued to do those, it got to the point to where they were never wearing off. And in all honesty, looking at it now, we probably could have dropped it down to maybe 2 or 1 session a week there towards the end. We just had a goal with a date in mind, and we wanted to make sure that we could achieve that. After we completely quit, the anxiety was completely gone for just about almost somewhere around the 3, maybe 3.5 week mark before it started kind of creeping back in. The stimulations were different on every single session that we did. Sometimes it only took 3 or 4 different 20-second stimulations during the session, and sometimes it took 20 to 25 different 20-second stimulations in there. But I went by the same rule where you stimulate until you get a response. And sometimes that response happened quickly, and sometimes that response did not happen quickly.
Question for people who, as you as an operator, how, and I know we trained you how to do this, my dad trained you how to do this, but now, like, how long did it take you to feel like super comfortable with the going from like zero, like, okay, I'm just starting off, to like, hey, I got this now? How long did that take for you as an operator?
I would say it probably took closer to 40 different sessions before I was 100% comfortable with it. I lined up a bunch of kind of family and friends to have as like test clients at first, and I think I did way too many. I don't think I needed as many guinea pigs as I thought I was going to need with it. And then it was kind of an interesting, funny story was when I was talking to Doug about it about halfway through, and I was like, I'm still not 100% feeling comfortable. He was like, well, are you doing it to yourself too? Do it to yourself and then see how long it takes you to feel comfortable with it. And then as soon as I started doing it with myself, I was like, okay, I'm definitely overthinking this process because it's actually very simple. So once I started doing it to myself, then I got very comfortable with it really quick.
What do you think, what's the most most surprising thing you've seen about doing the neurofeedback with somebody?
I am trying to not be surprised anymore, because you can argue that anything that supports the brain supports the whole body. One of the original huge shocks that I'd had with it was that we got blood pressure to stabilize with somebody. And so I started doing vitals before and after, where I can check somebody's blood pressure, their pulse, and everything right before we start. And I can see the blood pressure was in like the 160s over the 90s. And then when we shut it off, we waited a few minutes after I shut everything off and we checked it again. And it had dropped to 122 over 80, which is basically perfect at that point. And so that was one of those initial shocks with me where I was like, okay, and it was a surprise, but then the more that I thought about it, the more I was like, well, that's actually to be expected with what we're trying to accomplish when we shut off the sympathetic nervous system and we turn on parasympathetic. So I started including that in every one of my sessions. So I have another marker that I can look at too to see, did I maybe shut it off a couple minutes too early, or did we time it just right? That's another way that I usually just do it, just for me to be able to verify it, that, if things are looking good that way, then I hit it right. And if they're about the same, then I didn't. Other shocks that I've had with it, I did have somebody tell me that they've seen more colors. Still can't comprehend that with my head. That was one that I was never really expecting somebody to say, but I did have one person tell me that things look brighter and they can see kind of more colors. I've got a poster on my wall right behind where they sit, and there's colors all over it, and so they can actually see more of it. That was one. I did have somebody tell me that they don't necessarily have to have their reading glasses on anymore when they look at their phone, that they can read it all right. So, I mean, with kind of all these crazy things that I do keep hearing from different clients that I'm working with, I'm usually surprised for the first minute, but then when I kind of start thinking about it, then I'm like, that actually should be expected. It shouldn't be some crazy surprise, because if we're making the brain work 100%, then the rest of the body can work.
And you're not prompting anybody to go, "Hey, are you seeing more colors?" Or are you prompting them, or are they just are
So
they are you, because there's sometimes when you do need to help somebody say, "Hey, here's notice see if you see these things." Like, it's kind of like, one of those things. But do you have, when you're doing like those types of things, are people bringing them up themselves, or are they going, "Oh yeah, I kind of noticed this now"?
yeah, I kind of call that feeding information. And that was something that we were doing back all the way back when I was working in the hospitals, where we would ask a question with enough emphasis on a particular word or a tone in our voice that we would kind of make the patient agree with us to a certain extent. And so I've been very cautious of that, because I don't want somebody to think that, they're telling me what I want to hear. So I usually just kind of start with, you know, as I'm hooking somebody up, I have them completely still and silent, and I have them start with their toes and work their way all the way up their body and just notice exactly how everything feels. And then after every simulation, I'll check in with somebody and ask, are you feeling different? And if they tell me yes, then I say, what is different? And sometimes they can't put it into words in that moment, which is fine. I just write down that they are feeling something different, but they can't explain it. Um, if they say, I am feeling something different, but I don't know what it is, I'll kind of isolate certain areas in their body where I'm like, are you feeling it in your legs or your torso or your head or your face? And kind of help guide them so they can put it in their own words. But I don't come out and be like, all right, now look around and tell me how many colors you see, or the only time I ever do ask specific questions is if somebody has a goal. Like tinnitus was one that I've worked with a few people that have tinnitus, where I will ask them, are your ears still ringing? And if they are, does it feel like it's in the front or the back? Is the volume the same? Is it at the same amount of volume, or is it getting better, or is it getting worse? That's when only time I ever ask specific questions, is if we have a specific goal for that session.
So for the example of the eyes and the color side of it, they were the ones who brought it up.
Yes.
Wow. Yeah, I've heard that before, where it has been colors, and yeah, just you can kind of, as you said, you don't want to be leading with it, because as you said, you can get the kind of answers you want, but trying to see what it is, and that's always super fascinating to see.
At the beginning, I was taking a very very reserved approach. So I was almost getting discouraged at first because I was shutting the equipment down way too early, where because I didn't want to overstimulate somebody. But if you ever hit that instance where you are overstimulating somebody, they're still getting the benefits. They just get a couple hour side effect right there after we take it off, but they're still going to get all the benefit from it. It's not doing damage to them for that.
Yeah,
So
talk about the side effects a little bit of I know we know that, but for kind of the listeners of like what do you work at? Like what do you see the side effects being?
so the wired or tired, kind of more anxious or more on the exhausted side, 9 times out of 10 in my experience with it, it's just been the exhaustion where we'll put somebody towards relaxed, then we'll put them a little bit towards tired, and then we'll put them to where, okay, I need to go lay down and take a nap. That's kind of the side effect from it. I have had maybe one or two people in the past tell me that they were a little bit tired, that they couldn't sleep because their mind was a little bit anxious. And so that is kind of where I would put them on the wired side. With the horses, I did overstimulate a horse a few different times. In all honesty, probably 3 or 4 different times that I've overstimulated a horse. And it was just they were extra lazy that day was kind of the biggest thing. It didn't turn systems into overdrive. It kind of completely put the brakes on. But then after that wears off, a few hours later, then they still get all those benefits. Where when I was first starting, I was so worried about overstimulation that if somebody needed like 15 stims in that session, once I hit like 3 or 4, I'd be like, okay, shut it off. Like, that's as far as I want to go with you. So the first, that first round of guinea pigs I had, it took me a couple weeks before I was finally like, okay, I'm just going to hit the button until you tell me to stop. And that's when I started seeing way, way more results than, just shutting it off way too early.
And I do think the doing it on yourself is so important because you can feel what it feels like. I've done it for on myself, and I know what it feels like, and you just get comfortable with going, I'm not going to hurt somebody. So that's a huge part of it. Where do you see this? I mean, if you were to put this type of technology, put your feet in some place, where do you see this benefiting the most? Where do you see people like, 2 or 3 years or your perfect situation kind of a thing? Where do you see these types of modalities and technologies fitting into the world today?
I think that the term and kind of the area that surrounds wellness is growing rapidly. And I think it's wonderful. And so there's wellness centers that I see that this fitting into. I think that this is an excellent tool that, different psychologists or psychiatrists can include in their practice as well. I mean, in all honesty, I feel like you could argue that this this really can go in anywhere. It doesn't have to go in one location. One thing that I have kind of been thinking a lot more about, in the past few weeks is different school systems, whether it's public or private education, where this could help students that are struggling or students that need more time or students that struggle with ADHD or anxiety or kind of all of the above in certain instances. I'm working with a few different people that are autistic that this is helping with other symptoms that are associated with that, where it's giving them clarity of thought, it's helping with emotional regulation, and it's decreasing anxiety to where their grades are significantly improving, even though they're the same person that they've always been. They just needed a little bit of extra support to run some damage control up front. One of the clients that I'm working with has been working with a therapist for several years, and this person has about every different coping mechanism and tool in the book that you can think of, but is never able to apply them because the panic and the anxiety comes on so strongly that it's we're still struggling to train the body to be able to apply those. So now that we have the anxiety and the emotional regulation under complete control, this person is now able to apply everything that they've been learning in therapy to hold them in that state of ease. grades are significantly improving. This person is also going to kind of a career-based alternative care school a little bit, where they're gearing them up for kind of different trades or things like that, completely excelling in all aspects with that school, getting basically perfect test scores. So testing anxiety was a huge thing, where they would count their fingers and kind of try to re-ground themselves and refocus on what's at hand, and throughout that process would run out of time, where there was a time element that was associated with it as well. So now we can run that damage control up front. This individual is able to go in there and be completely confident and not have to worry about anything else, and can take their test and walk out of the room with almost a perfect score. So
Wow. And I think we talked about this a little bit. How's the therapist response to this?
the therapist response was not a response that I agree with. The therapist was a little bit disgruntled about losing the client when this family had reached out and said that, they were talking about discharge and kind of being done because, their child has learned everything that they possibly can learn, and they've found something else that is working for them. And the therapist did not take that as a win for the client. The therapist took it as a loss for them because they're now losing the client, which my goal with everybody that I work with is to get you to where you can take over everything on your own, not having to take a million different supplements every single day, or follow some crazy routine just to be able to live. Do all the work up front, and then I don't ever see you again unless there's something that comes up in the future that you need me for.
Yeah, the goal is for them to fire you at some point.
Exactly. I take that as a huge win when I don't hear from a client anymore.
Correct. Absolutely. And I think that's where the direct neurofeedback comes into play. I mean, we've had conversations with therapists before and we're like, hey, this is going to help your clients faster and stronger. And they go, well, how am I going to make money anymore?
Mhm.
Like, how am I going to do I need the 40 sessions to be able to sustain myself for recurring revenue. So I do think there is this shift when you bring these types of technologies into your practice or your organization, where you have to have that mentality of I want to help people bigger, faster, stronger,
Mhm.
and you have that already with what you're doing. So that's an amazing place. But yeah, I remember we were talking about it, and you said the disgruntled person coming to you,
Mhm.
and because it's like they lost a client, and you should be celebrating that that they're able to cope and
Helps
do all
them
those types of things.
to a point where they don't need the routine
Yeah,
active in their life. The other, yeah, it's the same thing, where my goal is just to not work with people anymore. The way that I can offset that, because I do see the side of it of it's not sustainable if you're only seeing people for 1 or 2 months and then you never see them again. So my way that I kind of offset that is I always encourage referrals, and I give discounts for referrals, where this might be the last time that I ever see you again. If you can refer me to one other person, then I'm going to give you a discount on whatever else you may need in the future. And if you don't need it, then you can give your discount to a family member. I kind of work it through that way, where I believe that true testimonial does way more than any other advertising can do. If you can talk with somebody in your family or somebody in your friend circle that you trust that says, no, I went and did this and this is amazing, is way more powerful than an ad that you see pop up on Instagram that everyone just hits the X as soon as they can and just gets rid of.
absolutely. Especially in this kind of day and age, there's a lot of different promises that are being thrown out there for, wellness or anxiety reducing and everything like that. So they're going, well, what's the difference between you and, this other thing that I just saw, this ad that I just saw?
Yeah,
So yeah, the word of mouth is so powerful.
I'm kind of analytical a little bit, and I'm a huge numbers person. So when I paid a lot of money to run all of those social media ads and everything, and when I run the analytics on it and I look at how many people did I actually gain from all of that, I think I gained 2 clients throughout that whole process. And every other client that I've gained since I've moved down here has been through a true testimonial of somebody that I'm working with giving my number to somebody else and saying, you need to go try this.
Absolutely. And it forces you too to focus on the client too,
Mhm.
rather than trying to run ads. I mean, when you just focus on helping people and doing it really, really well, people are going to talk about it and go, yeah, I got over my anxiety with this, or I'm a different person now, and this is the person that I worked with. So absolutely. As we're kind of wrapping this up now, because we could talk about this for a long time, because you're living this right now. How can people contact you if someone's listening here today and saying, hey, Keith, I'm in Scottsdale, I'm in Cave Creek, I'm in Phoenix, and I want to talk to you about your programs. How do people get a hold of you?
So the best way is to call me, or you can reach out to me on my website as well. But
Okay.
phone call is way better for me.
Okay. I will put that in the show notes. So if somebody's interested, if someone's listening right now and they're like, oh, I want to find out more about this, look in the show notes of the podcast, and we'll make sure to put that. But then what's your website?
So the website is sustain.
Okay. Sweet. Awesome. That's great. Well, I appreciate your time here today. I love the stories. I love the insight. I love how you have just taken. I mean, you're the perfect person that I'm so happy that is using this. I mean, when we talk about Calm Waves and what we're doing, a big thing is help to helpers, and you are somebody who's already helping so many people. So those are the people we want to work with. We want people like you that go, I want to learn how to help people better, and because that's the best way we can help more people. I mean, if we opened up our own shop and we're competing with each other, and I'm trying to do ads and you're trying to do, like, it doesn't work that way. But if we can work together and go, hey, let's teach you how to do this and teach you how to help people more, it just makes me so happy every time I sit down with you and you share a story, because I feel like we're a part of it as well. So I just love it.
Yeah, thank you guys for everything.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Well, I appreciate your time here today. I'm sure we'll probably do it again some other time once you've worked with other horses or other people, because you have just such great insight of using this every day. So thank you again. And yeah, people listening, find Keith if you're interested, and give him a call if you want to work with him one-on-one with the direct neurofeedback or the other types of medicines that he's working with. So thank you again, Keith.
Yeah, thank you.